welcome to Life Lab. I'm your host, Mai Lê. This is a self-discovery podcast dedicated to inspiring and guiding you toward your most authentic self. Through personal reflections, real-life experiments, and stories of myself and others, we'll explore what it means to grow, evolve, and truly live in alignment. In today's episode, we are exploring the question, what is wrong with me? And I'm going to bring you back into a time in my life when I wasn't very confident in myself. I had a lot of self-doubt, and this question would pop up often when situations weren't going the way I was hoping it would, or I would be criticized and I would start questioning, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And I'm going to talk about how that question isn't really framed in the best way for reflection and how it's more harmful than helpful. At the end of the story, I will share a Life Lab exercise to help you practice more self-compassion during tough times. This question occurred many times when a situation didn't go well for me, or maybe I was being criticized. And when I was in my early 20s, and also when I was a kid as well, I didn't handle criticism very well. And it was very much an attack on my self-worth. It could be anything from constructive feedback to harsh criticism given by someone who couldn't communicate very well. It was something that I wasn't able to look at it objectively and think, okay, they're just trying to help me out. If anything, my perfectionism wanted me to avoid it as much as possible. And so I would just be pushing myself to do so well that no one could give me bad feedback. When I would receive that positive feedback, then it was good. It wasn't an attack on my identity. That propelled and fueled my perfectionism because that was what I was trying to avoid. It wasn't that obvious when I was younger. It's so much more obvious now that I have grown and matured and have been able to look back and reflect. But when you're in that stage, and you don't have the awareness and you don't have the skill set and the reflection and the tools, it's just business as usual. There were times when this question would really breed this fear of unworthiness, and that was beyond repair. Because really, when you ask a question like that, what is wrong with me? You feel a sense of hopelessness, and that you're beyond repair, that there's something wrong with you, and that you don't have the ability to fix it. That something is defective about you. At least that's how I interpreted it. And so that's why I don't think of this question any longer. I don't incorporate it in my in the way of my reflection and processing. It's very much an unhealthy way of framing things. We're not perfect. And I understood that back then, but I did not understand how to separate my self-worth from my productivity, and to separate people's feedback from my identity as well. So it was very much ingrained, and that's only something I recognized in the last 5-6 years. When I started working in the restaurants, I remember drying the spoons and folding the silverware. And my boss was very meticulous. He wanted things done a certain way. And I just remember him kind of giving me some harsh feedback, and his tone was, the way he delivered it wasn't very nice. And it was for, drying silverware. Back then I didn't handle it well because I felt really bad. Like I was like, why am I should be able to do this fine. Like this is good. Like it's a simple task, and I took it harshly. There were other situations when I was working in the restaurant where I look back now and I can see how it didn't help me to react the way I did. Did I know better? No, I did not. That was just part of my immaturity. Can't say I can go with it now in my 30s. And it's good for me to now be able to look back and like, I see the immaturity. I see the lack of awareness. When I was critiquing myself, I wanted to fix myself so much that the external factors that were affecting my life, the boss that was being mean to me, my parents or my siblings or the people who were judging me or saying things that was out of my control. I wanted to fix as much as I could to prevent that from happening. Now, that kind of dynamic is not going to work in the long run. Trying to fix yourself so much that you prevent someone else from saying anything is going to make you run your life for somebody else forever, and you're not living for yourself. And what I had to learn in these moments was that I need to find certainty in myself. I need to find ownership and accountability within myself and recognize that there is an area of things that are beyond my control, but what is in my control is myself. I have to show up for myself because when you're in a conversation, there are two people involved. There's the other person and there's you, and you need to be able to show up for yourself. And this question attacks so much on you that it doesn't actually show up for you. We want to critique ourselves and try to fix ourselves so much, but we need to be able to identify what are things we can improve on and what else is out of my control. How do we just focus on not attaching our worth to it? I think having a good career and something that is honorable and respectable was something that I strived for so heavily. I don't know if it's because maybe growing up, you want to have that status and that title. People will respect you more. Luckily, my family wasn't really harsh on that. Coming from an Asian family, there's that stereotype that you have to become a doctor. And I know a lot of my Asian friends who had to go through that route, but I am fortunate that my family didn't force me into that. I remember working in the news industry when I was in college, and I went from an intern at the local news station to a web producer. And I was still in college. I was very proud of myself. I felt like, wow, I went from intern to a web producer, and I haven't even graduated yet. This was kind of on the same track as my sister, who also went from intern to having a job at a company in her field. To me, it was a sign like, okay, I'm on the right track. Because you're living life for the first time. I mean, we don't really know if what we're doing is right. And I had this idea that I would stay with them for a very long time. When my boss, the news director, and the assistant news director, actually wasn't the assistant news director. I can't remember her position, but she was just like right above me. And he brought both of us in. And then randomly, he just fired me. He's like, oh, I have to let you go. And he brought her, and she didn't know anything. To this day, I'm talking 10 years later, I have zero idea what I did wrong to lose my job. And I was devastated. I was crying for days and days and days. I remember being in my documentary film class, could not focus, completely shattered because somebody decided to let me go from my job and give no reason as to why I needed to be let go. And yet, even with no reason, I still felt like it was something I did wrong and that there was something wrong with me. I didn't have the skill set at the time to let it go and sense that maybe it could have been any other reason other than me. I couldn't rationalize and think maybe there wasn't enough money or maybe the position wasn't needed, or I could not think of any of the reason other than there was something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough. There was something that I wasn't giving enough, and I internalized it, and it really broke me. it's still one of those like really pivotal moments where I was just like, I have nothing to offer because I had spent my high school years in journalism, working in the newspaper, working for the news department in my school, went to school for journalism. I was taking graduate courses. I had multiple internships with companies. And so then to get a position at the local news station and then they just randomly fire me, I thought, how could I spend almost 8 years of my life to be fired, to be let go of with no reason? I'm tapping back into that, like, what is wrong with me feeling. I hope that the crying right now doesn't miscommunicate where I am now, because I feel like a different version of me. When I'm doing these reflections, I I see myself like a meta version of me. I am out here looking back in and seeing that younger version of me, and I'm crying for that version of me who didn't know better, who didn't know that much, and I'm caring for her, and I'm doing this for her. I'm not giving up for that girl that was sitting in that room having no idea what she did wrong, but yet internalizing that everything she did was wrong. And so, uh, yeah, I cry sometimes, not because like, why did they do that to me? Why did they, and have anger. I'm realizing that was just a part of my story, a part of my life that really shaped who I am today and what I can offer to people today and how we can grow from this and how we can evolve as people and transform from from a version of ourselves where we feel powerless and transform into something where we have more control over our lives and have more self-awareness and really tap into an alignment with ourselves where we are also more empathetic and understanding of other people. I don't have any ill feelings towards that boss. I remember the last time I saw him was at a restaurant and I avoided him, which I don't know if you asked me today if I would avoid him again. I do see it differently now. At the time then, I had a lot of mixed feelings because when you do something like that from the other side, so if you are an employer and you just randomly like fire somebody with no explanation, there's communication that you're stopping, and it doesn't help the other person. Like on my side of it, I did not feel like I could have a conversation about it. And I think that happens with relationships with people in general, that when there's not enough transparency, not enough open communication, and not enough honesty and directness, there's this wall that you are building where it doesn't feel like both sides can be heard and it doesn't feel like both sides can be understood. Whether it's because one person doesn't have the desire or skill set to do that. That's beyond my control. And nowadays, it's 10 years later. Do I want to know? Do I need to know why? Not really. It doesn't bother me that I don't know. And so the crying again is not because I don't know, it's because I see that version of me and I feel sad for her. And I do what I can now for her. And that's something that has been very powerful for me to be able to uh, see different versions of myself throughout the last 10 years of my life, of my adulthood. That's something I wanted to talk about early on in this podcast because some of these questions, like, am I enough? What is wrong with me? These are not questions I ask myself now. These are not typically words that are popping up in my head in 2026 and what I'm doing now in my life. And I'm having to tap back into this time in my life when I was immature and insecure and had low self awareness. It does carry some weight to it, and it's a little heavy, and there is a lot that goes on underneath. And I'm so glad to be able to reflect and analyze and see how far I've grown. It's amazing. And it's kind of like those body transformations, and somebody has lost a lot of weight and you see where they go from what they were and what they are now. It's kind of like what I did. During COVID had I was almost 200 pounds. I knew I needed to lose the weight, and I lost 50 pounds in 6 months. I learned how to eat healthy, how to work out and do strength training, and that transformation, people could see it physically, see my transformation, and they were very proud of me. And it's something that you can look at and be like, wow, look at how far you've come. But when it's up here, when it's your mental and emotional mindset that has changed, really only you can see that. And maybe the people closest to you can see that. Because even my best friend right now, who kind of entered my life when I was midway in my transformation. This was like right after my 9-year breakup, and I was really working on myself. She has seen everything from that moment to now. And yes, she has talked to me about what she has seen, especially when it comes to dating, how I've evolved and how I approach dating. But I would say only myself and maybe a few people in my family have ever really seen how much I've shifted in my mindset from when I was in my early 20s to now. And that transformation is really, it's really amazing for me. I want to be able to introduce that to other people for themselves, because that mind shift change, the way we start talking to ourselves, the way that we start approaching life, it can be very impactful and change everything for ourselves. I look back and these moments with these questions, and yeah, I think, wow, I can't believe I can't believe I was asking myself those questions. What is wrong with me? You know, these are not nice questions to be asking ourselves. Okay. These are reflection is good. Critiquing ourselves, giving ourselves time to see where we can improve is good. But words matter. And if you ask yourself certain things in certain ways, it can actually do more harm than good. So saying what's wrong with me isn't the best way to self-assess and improve on our lives. I tutor students and coach them on working on the topic, whether it's math or reading or coding. I ask them, what is a grow and what's a glow? What is something that you can improve on? Where do you feel like you could get better at? And what's a glow? What's something that what you feel like you're doing well in? Understanding that what's going wrong in the task, it has nothing to do with with your identity and your worth. And just being able to keep practicing that, and uh, just making it a new habit in our minds ingrained that this is not the same thing. Your your productivity is not connected to your self-worth. The situation you're in is not connected to your self-worth at all. For example, you might be in a situation where on the outside it looks like you are not doing well for yourself, but that has nothing to do with your self-worth. For example, when I went to New Zealand and I was living in my car, some people might see that, oh, she doesn't have enough money to live in an apartment. No, that was a choice. That was a choice for an adventure. And if I had let someone else judge me and think, what's wrong with her? Well, why can't she afford, to stay in a house or whatever? If I let that have more power over my desire for adventure and my desire to see how strong I am, to see what I could do with my life with less, and just to explore, if I let them have more power over me, then I would be missing out on what I was curious about. This idea of what is wrong with me can really just breed a lot of shame and a sense of disappointment and a sense of that you have no control. But the thing is that we have control. We have control over our lives. We have that ability and power to manifest what we want in our lives. Is how we think of it and how we approach it. And so I'm hoping that my story helps you see that, and that our self-worth is inherent. Just like I talked about in a previous episode, our self-worth is inherent. We are worthy just by being who we are. And when we let that exist, then we can then give ourselves permission to fail and explore life. And I think when you are able to have that compassion for yourself, you can flourish. And that's part of that 4C framework that I am using in my coaching, and what I've found in my transformation. When you have that foundation of compassion for yourself, then you give yourself permission to be curious, which is the second C. You you don't doubt yourself anymore in that sense. Like you have enough compassion. You're like, okay, what am I curious about? What do I want to explore? And when you reach that curiosity stage, then you want to start thinking about what are some ways to step forward, take action, and be courageous. And that's that third C. And when you start acting on that curiosity and being courageous about it, then you enter confidence, which is the fourth C, and you are building evidence of your confidence. And it's just a continuation. Even to this day, when I approach something new in my life and maybe I'm a little nervous and a little scared, I tap back into my compassion, give myself some grace, and allow myself to approach with curiosity and courage. And then I lean back onto all the other stuff I've done in my life as evidence that I have what it takes to try these things. And it just propels me and it brings me forward, and it continues and allows me to show up for myself when maybe others aren't, or when the situation doesn't feel like it will support me. I can support myself with this 4C framework to be able to continuously live adventurously. I recognize this. I am so thankful for it. And I'm hoping that these stories that I share shed a light on that kind of framework and how you can also use it to live more adventurously. I want to bring you into the exercise for today, where we try to separate our identity from the situation and what's going on. I want you to reflect over a situation where you might have been questioning yourself on what is wrong with me. Maybe it was a time when your boss was criticizing you, or your spouse, your best friend. Maybe you were doing something and you kept failing at it, and you were just wondering, what is wrong with me? It could be someone saying something to you, or you being hard on yourself and trying to figure something out, but you just kept saying, what is wrong with me? Maybe you were working on a school project or a work assignment, a task, and everything you were giving was just not enough, or the sense of not enough, and you kept saying, what is wrong with me? I want you to reflect on it. Write everything down. Write the whole situation of what was going on, or even do some voice notes and just talk about the whole situation. Then I want you to take a moment to talk about what you do well in. Okay. and what strengths that you bring to whatever the situation is. And also be able to sit with some compassion for yourself. Take some deep breaths when I'm spiraling. This is something my therapist had taught me, and I still use it to this day. But when you're spiraling, you look at the wall, right? And you see the four corners of the room, and you can breathe in from one corner to the next. So breathing in and then holding it to the next wall, and then breathing out and then holding it for the fourth wall, and then just repeating that, and physically moving your eyes. So you're breathing, you're physically focusing, your eyes are moving, and you're making that, and you repeat it for 5 to 10 times. Do the breathing activity while you're going through this reflection process and just dumping everything of what happened, and try to think about what you did well in, right? As well as try to understand from their point of view, what was it that they were trying to say underneath it all, and recognize that they're not perfect either, and that you're not perfect, they're not perfect, no one's perfect, and that we all have ways to improve. They even have ways to improve. Maybe they weren't communicating it in a respectful manner or in a safe way to communicate with you, you know? But yet sometimes we get so caught up with what's wrong with me that we don't see things objectively. And if it's too much, step back. If you need to take a break, take a break. The biggest thing is holding self compassion for yourself and recognizing that there's nothing wrong with you inherently, that you are not broken. You yourself are worthy of love and worthy of existence. And that is important to recognize. And if anything, take that away, is that we are all worthy of existence here. We are all worthy of improving ourselves and existing. And there's nothing inherently wrong with you. What we do with our day to day, what we do with our work and our lives, that is a part of us, but it is not us. And our job is not who we are. Our relationship isn't who we are. It's a part of us, but we exist on our own. That gives us a way to detach from being successful in a certain career or successful in a relationship, or, aiming for certain things in our life. If we are able to detach our identity and our self-worth from all those things, and it gives us permission to live more authentically in however we see fit. That is the episode for today. I am thankful. I am very thankful for you taking the time to listen to my story, to join me today. And I hope that this was helpful for you. I encourage you to go get my free ebook, Fear is Fuel. It's on my website, and to check out my new coaching program. It's on my website called brave.ju.mp. So it reads out Brave Jump. And you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at My Wonderless Life. That is at MaiWanderlustLife, My Wonderlust Life. Lastly, I just want to remind you that we're all living life for the first time. So let's be patient, kind, and let's figure it out together. I'm your host, Mai Lê, and I'll see you next time.